Hello. Happy New Year! Brandy Rose Smith live from the Forbidden Library. And we're starting off 2023 by looking at what I read in 2022. Which is all of these books, all of these ones, and all of these ones down here, because I couldn't fit them all there. That is 23 books in total that I read. I'm quite proud of that. And I wish I could put them on my Books for Freedom thing. But I actually didn't fall into the library or start streaming until, like, down here, book-wise. So, yeah, that was a giant pain in the ass. Wait a minute, I have miscalculated. There we go. Yeah, I'm better off doing it. My setup had to be a little bit different for this, because I had to figure out how to get this. I know I could have made a custom tier list, but I wasn't sure how you can make them private or anything like that, so I just made my own thing. So, as you can see, we have some light novels, fantasy novel, light novel, fantasy novel, light novel, fantasy novel, light novel, children's fantasy novel, light novel, light novel, fantasy novel, light novel, sci-fi novel, light novel, fantasy novel, light novel, fantasy novel, light novel, fantasy novel, YA, classic literature, and light novels. So there's a lot of light novels in here. But let's see where they go. And I'll tell you a bit about them as we go through. And I've separated the top 5 so that when we get to those books, I'll just put it up there if I remember which ones I picked. And I will talk about them in more detail later on once we've gone through all of the other books. But to start with, these are in... Oh yeah. These are in order of when I read them. So this is starting in January, coming all the way down to Tear Moon being the last book I read in the year. The only one that isn't specifically in order is The Little Prince here, because I can't remember exactly when I read that. I think it was somewhere around here technically, but it wasn't in the right place in my list. So I did my best guess. Or I just put it near the end because I was just like, well, it can... So the first one was Magical Girl Raising Project, book 12. Oh. I just wanted you to have a look at the cover. It's very pretty. We have La Pucelle, who was in the first book, and this character was new. Apparently they're from a side story I didn't know much about. This is a book of side stories, and I hate it when Magical Girl Raising Project does side stories because I want the plot. Hello, Palm Star! Happy New Year! This is a slightly different name, but it is still Palm. Are you the Palm from the Sonic stream, but with a different name? Yes. Magical Raising Project. A side story book. So that automatically puts it quite low for me. So we don't. This isn't a benchmarker by any means for this. So it's gonna go down to D. I don't even remember any of the stories. Yes, you are wonderful. Did you change your name seasonally? So yeah, no, I want you to go. It formatting, bro. Done a good job. There we go. That'll do. It's in. That the star for the heck of it. Well, that's sounds like fun. Star of a chat person. Yeah. Okay, so that leads me on to Katarina. My next life is a villainess and all routes lead to doom! I always say an and there, but that's not actually an and. It's a semicolon. But it feels right to put an and in there. This was definitely one of my most favourite anime ever. Everything about this anime just made me horrifically happy, and the book is basically exactly the same. So I was also very happy with the book. So I think my next life as a villainess is probably A tier for me, I think. Katarina's very chill. It makes me happy. So that's where that's going. I'm not rating light novels only. These are in order if I read them, so I usually read a light novel, not a light novel, a light novel, not a light novel, light novel, not a light novel. So there's going to be a little mixture of all things. Ooh. Should be a nice little, well, I say nice collection. It's going to be light novels and fantasy books 9 times out of 10. So Heirs of Power. I gave this to someone. I liked this series so much that I bought this book as a physical copy to give to someone else as a Christmas present this year. Heirs of Power is a fantasy book by a lady called Kay MacLeod, who has very quickly become one of my favourite authors. She just has such great banter, and her characters come across so well. It's wonderful. Between this and the Mayamon series she's done, which is like a Pokemon sort of setting, she's wonderful. I hope she brings another book out this year, and I want to read the only series of hers I haven't read. That's a goal of mine for next. This particular one, though, did have a bit of a rocky start. There was an info dump right at the start, which made it kind of hard to get through, but it did find its pacing. Probably about 3 chapters in. However, I think it's going to be B tier because I still sort of struggled. And I know the other books in the series got better as well, so I don't feel like I could. Like, those books are going to have to go up here somewhere because they're better than these ones. Timoon Empire. Fantasy Marie Antoinette gets a second chance, the series. Hey, look, Raptor Will, hello. How are you? The Timoon, as I said, is basically she gets her head chopped off in the future and then gets to retry as a small child to try, like, not have the Empire turn against her. Happy New Year indeed. Yeah, a lot of these did. Timoon is getting an empire. Timoon's getting an empire. No, it has an empire. It is an empire. Timoon is getting an anime next year, and I am so looking forward to it. Although I do worry a little bit because the best character in Timoon Empire is the narrator. The narrator, like, everything the main character does to, like, make her empire better is just addendumed on the end with the narrator going, and she did this for selfish reasons because she's a brat. It's so good. I don't need vocabulary. As long as you somewhat understood, it's fine. So Timoon's so good. It's like Katarina and Vilnes All Roots Lead to Doom in that they kind of dumb into making people's lives better, but instead she's not a nice person and she's doing it for selfish reasons, and the narrator will not let you off. It is a comedy novel, very much so. Where it's like, I did try to call it low stakes once in a review. Definitely more of a comedy, because there's still some quite big things happening. Like, she is trying to stop. We're talking like wars and big economic situations, potential plagues and stuff. Is it a manga or a light novel? I believe there's both. I would have to check. But I know that Katarina has or at least My Next Life is a Villainess and All Roots Lead to Doom has a manga and light novel. Timoon is definitely a novel. These are all novels that I've read. I'm not sure if it's got a manga. I know that Magical Raising Project has a manga, but I don't think it would cover the side stories that are in here. Now we're on to... Going too fast. Otherwise I might get through these too fast. Oh well. Stardropped, Golden Sun. If I'll take some more time to describe them, I guess, if I feel like I'm going fast. Stardropped was one, I think I ended up on a Discord for self-published authors and stuff like that, and someone sold me their book that was this, and they were like, well, it's Superman and Captain Marvel in a fantasy world. They're super powerful, and they fall in love, and it's romantic, and it's got fantasy and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? That sounds pretty cool. But I didn't get along with it that well. It was good. I did manage to read it all the way through at the very least. But because the main character, the Captain Marvel-esque character, she didn't really get to leave and do things much. She was incredibly powerful. I have read all of these. These are the 23 books I have read this year. So the Captain Marvel character was incredibly powerful, but she never got to kind of get out and do things. Now, this author has apparently done a second book from the point of view of the sort of Superman character that she goes off, and he gets to go off and do a lot. But I don't know if I want to sit through it again. I mean, it's always interesting reading a story from another comparison, but it's also kind of not as interesting in a way because you know where it's going. So I didn't get along with Stardust. The only thing I will say about this book, actually, the fashion. Holy shit. Is this author very good at describing dresses and beautiful, beautiful, fashionable items? It gave me very big Princess Diaries sort of feels, where like this character's being dressed up and treated as a queen, and she's not from that kind of background, but she's like, oh, the dresses though. It's the fashion in this book was so good. And I think the fashion's gonna put it into C at least. It wasn't my favorite book of the year, but I got there and I enjoyed it. Yeah. So our next one, this one does not have a manga, nor does it have an anime, is Mia and the Forbidden Medicine Report 2. So for me, and the Forbidden Medicine Report is about a young girl called Mia trying to go to the Royal Academy to find the cure for a disease called demon claw, I believe. I might get this wrong because there's two diseases in it that are going on. You've got the major disease, angel tears, and sort of a pauper disease called demon claw. And for some reason, there's a lot of things going on in the background that keep getting in her way. There's a lot of people who don't want her to find this cure. And so there's some very sus political things going on in the background. While she has two very pretty boys vying for her affections, obviously. And this one in the background, who is my favourite. This poor lad. He's just trying to get on with his day. This is, yeah, I call it romance. It's a shoujo, definitely. It's a shoujo with a little bit more to it. If it's, do you know how like anime can make anything interesting? Like there's an anime about like radio broadcasting at the moment, which makes that interesting. Made ping pong interesting. This makes developing medicine interesting. And that's what I would describe this one as. And then, like I said, you've got this poor man who's like sitting here between these two dumbasses and their love rivalry, like. But it's very good. I love it. I love that dynamic. They're all wonderful together. And Me and the Forbidden Medicine Report 2 was a very good addition to it. It's really not afraid to talk about the ethical ramifications of some of the testing and things that go along with it. That's kind of where they're up to on this. They've got some idea of what the drug they're going to use is, and they actually need to test it, but there's a question of how they test it. And she needs to get over the idea of like the animal testing is the first way to go before you can go to human testing, and generally it's very, very interesting, very good. I would put that to an A tier or a B tier. Oh, a hard choice. They're both. I think I'm leaning B tier because I'll admit the dumbass romance did get in the way almost sometimes, to be honest. It's very good and it serves purpose, but I'm actually more interested in the medical side of things. The second of the Constellation Saga, so we had Heirs of Power, which is the first of the Constellation Saga. And then we had the second one, Majorless Legacy, where this character comes in and she is wonderful. This is a fantasy story, pure as fantasy. So in the first one, you've got the main character finds out she's inherited a power from her dad. She has to go off and end up fighting a war in the shadows with these people who are trying to get into their world to basically take resources, as you do. In this book, we find out a bit more about that enemy side. We find all the other special people with powers, and there's some really sad deaths in it as well. Spoiler alert, but I wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready for it. Makes me feel this book, because like I said, Kay is really good at making characters that you will love, and then tearing them from you, or making bad things happen to them. So this one, without a doubt, goes into A tier because it's better than the first book, and that's the only one higher than the first book, except for the top 5, which we haven't even gotten to yet. Next, The Extraordinary, The Ordinary, and Soap is another shoujo novel, because I got into my girly feels this year. So this one's a fantasy romance where this character here has the power to make magical soap bubbles that not only can clean clothes, I'll get to that actually. I'll get to the isekai in a minute. She has magical soap bubbles that not only clean clothes, but they also calm monsters. This character over here has been isekai'd here. She is not the main character, but she has been isekai'd here. She's supposed to be here to purify these magical trees to stop the monsters from coming along. Problem is this character who's native to this world happens to have that power as well, or something very similar. And so everyone's a little bit confused as to what's going on here, which is very interesting. I really like the premise of this book, and the first one that I read last year, I ate that one up in a few days. It was so squishy and feelsy, and the romance between these two was so sweet, and it was just so cute. This one's come along though, and the sweetness is kind of worn off in favor of some fantasy sexism that no one ever addresses. Which I get. I'm usually okay to forgive fantasy sexism. Fantasy sexism. Because people write their worlds and they're like, that's what my world is like. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Problem is this character here, coming from a modern setting, does not question it. Does not question it for 1 second, and that bothers me greatly. Because there's sometimes that the men come out with stuff, and I'm just like, no, you probably shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be saying that. So it toes a line for me. Apparently that's the excuse, historical accuracy and whatnot, even though it's a fantasy world, so it really never has to be like that. But I'm not gonna drop a book unless it's horrific. I'm not gonna drop a book for it normally, because I'm just like, okay, that's the choice the author's made, and normally it's for a reason. Normally they have a moment of someone stepping up to that, or they do it to add a bit of struggle for the main characters or something like that. But this one, it doesn't. It's just there, and it's a little grating. It's just a little silly and tropey. Yeah, I haven't watched Game of Thrones, so I wouldn't know if they do that, but it wouldn't be surprising if they did do the whole fantasy sexism for the sake of it. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot of fantasy video game worlds don't bother with it, especially because a lot of them you can play as a woman, so they don't put it in. You don't need to. It's a fantasy world. No one gives a shit. She's a very dense MC, definitely. She is. This one, I'll admit, she has some really good character development in this one. She has a great sort of arc of becoming someone who wants to be a pampered princess and starting to stand on her own 2 feet. But that's defeated a little bit to me by the fantasy sexism. I'm still going to read the next one. But that's because this is actually just a 3-book series rather than a light novel that goes on forever, and I want to know how it ends. That is literally the only reason I'm going to pick up the 3rd book this year. And that's that one. And because of the fantasy section, that unfortunately goes down to D tier. I'm sorry, Soap. You were one of my favourites last year. You just disappointed the heck out of me this year. Yeah, Game of Thrones is never going to be on my to-read list, I don't think. I've seen enough and heard enough to know that is most definitely not my cup of tea. Now, for R.D. Willems, Embracing the Clouds. The Dreams and Adventures of Children from the Bowl World, Book 1. Yeah, some do. There is a company at the moment called J Novel Club who is translating them fairly quickly, to be honest, and that's a J Novel Club published one, so that is completely translated the whole series, so that's why I'm gonna at least give it another go. Moving on to Embracing the Clouds, though. This is a children's fantasy novel, so I was reading this as an adult, even though it was aimed at kids, and it was honestly quite interesting to do. The premise is there's a bunch of kids who live in, basically, like it says a bowl world, so they're basically surrounded by mountains on all sides. And, fair enough. I hope you had fun anyway, Luke. Have a nice day. Happy New Year. They basically survived on their own as far as they can remember. They don't even know what adults look like until eventually they get a little bit adventurous and try leave this world. And the actual kids in that aren't very... What am I drinking? Water! Yeah, I'm drinking water. I drank a lot yesterday, alcohol-wise, and I don't want to drink anymore. So water is for me. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so they venture outside the bowl world, only to find adults. What? Tall people? And this interesting fantasy world that, from their eyes, is really strange, but from reading it as an adult and seeing the bits that you start to understand and seeing the adults doing, like, there's this veil behind it, which is fascinating. Bits and pieces that you're just like, ooh, I wonder where that goes to. I wonder what that means. It's very interesting. And I'm actually vaguely curious to read more of these ones if Willem does more. I haven't checked with them if they've done another one. But obviously, a very interesting one. I'd be curious to hear the opinions of the actual target audience, that is children and not me. But probably, I don't know if it's quite B level, because like I said, it wasn't quite for me. There was a bit of a slog at times when the kids were being extra dumb, and I was just like, children. So I think it still goes down to C tier, unfortunately. Now, Bibliophile Princess. Now, this one did get an anime this year, which I haven't watched and I want to, because in total honesty, I found this book a little bit boring. Have you read these? No, unfortunately, the only book I've read on... I've read this one here. I've read the half of, because that's how much I got permission for. I've read the first of this series as a preview. I've read the whole of this book. Oh yeah, this is shoujo as fuck in it. You cannot get as pretty as this and not be a shoujo. As I said, I got in my girly feels this year. I might try read a few less shoujos next year, so I've got a bit more variety. Anyway, Bibliophile Princess. Princess likes books. Princess doesn't want to do anything but read books. Prince is like, hey, if you get engaged to me, I'll make sure you can just read books. And she's like, yeah, sounds great, bro. So they're engaged. But then he starts getting along with another woman. And she starts getting a little bit jealous. It was just a marriage of convenience. Why is she feeling like this? So that's kind of the first part of the book. And then after that, it kind of drops off. And not much happens anymore. There's like a slight uptick at the end. But the middle part of this book is just it's a lot of flashbacks and a lot of trying to explain their relationship and stuff, and it doesn't come across well to me. But I'd be curious to see how well that comes across in the anime. But it wasn't on Crunchyroll, therefore it was a struggle to find, and I haven't actually watched it. On my list, if I ever did find it anywhere. This literally did have an anime, so it could literally be this anime that you're thinking of. A different anime, definitely a different anime. There's more than one, like, book princess novels, weirdly. Because when I was looking through, there's like this, and then there's another one which is pretty much the exact same premise. Because Japanese light novels doing the same thing, isekais and all that, like, who would have guessed? So then, I need to check something. I may not remember, like, who was actually on my top 5, so I just need to check if this one... Yes, it's okay. Just reminding myself. Okay, there we go. I remember now. Magical Girl Racing Project 13. Black. Finally, a return to the plot after a few side story books. Yay! And I'll talk more about this one later. Why? Why, you ask? Because it's in the top 5, and we talk about the top 5 separately later. We'll go into lots more detail about them and just rant. Not that I haven't been doing it the entire time. Yes, you've seen the anime, and the anime of Magical Girl Racing Project literally only covers the first book and a couple of side stories. That is book 13. So it's a little bit further than the anime. Right. So a book I've read half of on stream. Purple Door District. Which again, I'm not going to talk about right now, because you know what? It's in my top 5. Is it? I'm really bad at remembering. It's gotta be, right? I really enjoyed this book. No. Apparently it's not. Huh. Okay. It literally just missed my top 5 then. Sequels? I don't think my anime Magical Racing Project will get sequels, unfortunately. I think, the first series didn't do well enough from what I heard, or a lot of people didn't like it because it was coming off the back of Madoka. I'm trying to ride that wave that it didn't quite. People just saw it as a knockoff from Madoka, which is a little sad and not entirely incorrect, but a little sad. Because I would have loved more, because the second sort of story from that is pretty good. Right, so Magica, yes, well, let's get focused again. Purple Door District is a urban fantasy. That's the word I'm trying to look for. We got an urban fantasy, so it's all about like a lot of fantasy elements in a modern world. It's about a werebird called Bianca, who is being hunted by hunters. Hunters hunt parahumans, who are like the superhumans, your werewolves, your magic people. And she has some kind of magical vision power that she shouldn't have because werebirds don't tend to have magic. That's very strange. And she gets taken in by the Purple Door District of Chicago, which like shelters parahuman stuff. It's very good. It's built a really cool world. I've literally just started the second book now, and it's still very good. I'm excited to learn more about this. There are vampires. Indeed there are. One in particular, who's a bit of a bitch. Yes. Your standard, what do I call it, Dresden affair. Dresden is probably one of the most popular urban fantasies out there. I'd arguably say Harry Potter is technically urban fantasy, but it doesn't actually take place in cities. It's just, yeah. Copying Twilight! Twilight wishes it was this. This is so much more than Twilight. Rude. I want you to contact Miss Erin Casey yourself and apologize. Because that's just... the worst thing you could possibly say. This one's good. It's also a little bit gay, which is great. Twilight wishes it really does. Rude. This is in my A tier. Sure she will. She's a very nice lady. She did come to one of my streams while I was reading it. I was very happy. It was very good. Exciting. Although, it did make me a little self-conscious that she was there. It's like, oh no, what if I mess up reading her book while she's there? Now, we should know about this one. Nier! So Nier Automata has 2 light novels. A one called Long Story Short and one called Short Story Long. She's probably not watching now. I did post this on Twitter and stuff, but I don't know if she's aware that I am rating her books and stuff right now. It'd be nice if she get to know that she's in my A tier of books this year. But moving on to Nier Automata, a book you're not allowed to read unless you have gotten ending E of the game. This is a book. This is a novel of the game, basically. It is both. Multimedia, bro! It's both a book and a game. And the book basically follows the game. Both basically ending A and then ending C and D, I would say. I can't remember which specific one they do. But the fascinating thing, if you have played the game, and I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible for anyone who has not played, being inside 2B's head at the start of the game is fascinating. There is some stuff you would not know about 2B until later on, and they don't give away in the game at all. No, I'm not spoiling it. It's too good. Everyone must play this game. There's a reason everyone rants about this game being amazing. But yeah, it's a wonderful game. And it's also a wonderful book, but the book cannot be read until you have played the game because it spoils the game, and the game should be played. So that's all I will say about Nier and the fact that it's amazing. Because I thought I might get a little bit bored, because the thing with novelizations and stuff, it's like, you know what's going to happen. But there's enough interesting character stuff that, I know you have, but what if someone, like, clicks... There's 2 viewers and one of them is you. What if the other one hasn't watched it? And it's just lurking and is too afraid to say something. Also, what if someone watches the VOD and doesn't know? They don't know. But yeah, if you have played it, you should know in the tower there's something you find out about 2B. And that changes her relationship with 9S. I mean, I can kind of forgive. Yes, I know you have not played. And you should. And yeah, so that's the interesting part of that. I will say no more on that just in case, but that is definitely one of my A-tier books. I loved reading that, and I look forward to reading the sequel next year. And now we have Shari Sakurai's Broken World. So I read a preview stream of the first book, which was Perfect World. This is sort of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi, enemies to lovers, gay, fantasy novel. That was a lot of words. It's good. But enemies to lovers thing is great. You've got the main character. So much. He is such a good boy. He's just the best person in the whole wide world, and he's trying to make the world a better place, but everything's shit. There's so much political scheming and things going on around him, and he just wants to make the world a better place and make his incredibly mentally ill husbando better, but everything's against him. Everything. What happened to the world in this one is basically climate change and natural disasters. It's based in London mostly. and in England. And most of England got flooded and stuff like that. Apparently there's a Cold War going on in here, but not quite nuclear war. So basically the only places that survived were the big cities. So London, and they spend a lot of time in Scotland, Edinburgh as well. And in this particular book, the ending hurt me. Hurt me very, very much. And now I'm going to have to wait because the next book's not been written. And I can't. I need to know how my boy is going to survive because he's a golden good boy and I love him. And he gets to go in A tier because that's what he deserves, okay? We're okay. We're okay, because you know what we get to go on to? After that sadness, I had to go on to something a lot brighter and happier. So I went on to Bow Fury! I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. Book 2. Now this does have an anime, and it is about a girl who gets pushed into playing an MMO with a friend, and she doesn't really know what to do. You already know the anime, I don't need to explain Maple to you. The glory that is Maple. It's a great anime, and it's also a great book. There's a couple of little bits in the book that aren't in the anime. This book's where they got the turtle and the fox. Basically covers the sort of second event that she does with Sally. Really good. It's such a chill book. Just read about two girls having fun playing an MMO together and being absolutely dumb. And there is a season 2 out too. I cannot wait. Between like this and Katarina have been some of my favorite anime at the moment. They're just so good. They're so happy and chill and wholesome, and that's what you need in life right now. So enough said about Bow Fury. It's an A tier. Not top 5. But it's an A tier. I'm just going to double check my top 5 again because I can't remember. I am smart. Have I ever told you this? Aha! I have missed one in my top 5. And I've already talked about it. Oh well. I guess I'll have to talk about it again later. I knew I'd just get into a rhythm and then I'd just forget. Broken World is in top 5. Because that's what he deserves! And now, this is where I actually started streaming in the year. This is what I was reading when I landed in the Forbidden Library. Which is oh, no! There we go. We haven't messed up, it's fine. Conquest of the Ten, Book 3 of the Constellation Saga. And as you can see, they step up, they just keep going up. So I'm not going to talk about this one again, because this one goes straight into the top 5. Yeah. We already have 2 more of the top 5. Who's it gonna be? It's not this one. This one was missold. Reflections on the World. As you can see, another shoujo one. This one made me vaguely interested because it was the idea that she sort of falls to the looking glass. It's kind of an isekai. Into a world where beauty standards are flipped. So in her world, she's not very pretty, even though she clearly she falls into this world, and everyone thinks she's the most beautiful person in the world. And then there's this really handsome boy that everyone thinks is the most ugliest bastard who ever lived. But it doesn't really, or at least that was like the premise it's trying to do, but it doesn't do it very well. Because even the so-called pretty people in that world aren't ugly, and obviously she's not ugly. It's just... It tried. Bless it tried. And it didn't quite work out. The only thing I'll give this one is that at least for an isekai, the idea of trying to get home wasn't ignored. And we did have a flashback at the end of this book of like... Yeah, medieval Disney vibes, sort of Princess Diaries again kind of thing, where it's a bit of a feminine fantasy thing of being like, oh, I'm the prettiest and I get all the dresses and things. But she doesn't really like that. She's a ball of anxiety and she's like, holy shit, please save me. I want to go home. And there is a flashback at the, oh, not a flashback, but a cutaway to the world she left at the end, and like police vans are out and everyone's searching for her and her mum's upset and things, and her friends crying about her and things like that. So it's like, I'm curious where this one might go. But it's not top 5. It's really not. Sorry. I wanted, and half the reason I did pick this up was on actually because of the art. The art's really pretty, bro. It just looks really nice. But it's not my top 5, and in fact I was a little disappointed by it. It's not quite D tier, but it's probably C tier for me. It's very pretty, and it's got a good idea, but it did not execute it very well. Then we go on to She Who... It looks like kisses, but it's supposed to be rises, okay? She Who Rises is a urban fantasy again. This one is about magical stones that have magical creatures sealed in them. It should be only one family in the world that should be able to use these, but our main character has magically gained this power. And there are other people who apparently can, and they're being hunted through a place in America that I forgot where it was set, but they're being hunted through America. And basically just trying to survive, and there's this desperate feeling to it. It's very interesting. It's got a good power system. She Who Kisses. There is no kisses in it is the issue. It could be She Who Kisses, but it would be a lie. But then she doesn't really rise either, to be honest. She gets beaten down a lot. She might rise next book when she actually gets to learn the magic and stuff, but in this one she's just running for her life, and then there's like a few people around her that know magic, and every time she tries she passes out. So maybe next book she can rise, but for now She Who Rises is gonna be a B tier, because I did enjoy it, and I am enjoying it enough that I want to pick up the next book, but I wasn't so enthralled that it gets to go in into A tier sort of thing. Yeah. Next book. It's Magical Girl Raising Project again, as you can see. This is one of the few light novel series I am fully up to date with and stay up to date with. But this one, Yen Press, the publishers for this, did something really, really strange. So let me just get this back over here a minute. So we got Magical Girl 13 over here. 13 is Magical Girl Black, which is a main story Magical Girl Raising Project, rather than the 12 that was side stories. What should have come after that, and did in the Japanese publishing, is Magical Girl White. Instead, for some reason, we got Magical Girl Breakdown, which is a side web novel, which has a completely different set of magical girls, completely different set of plot. Because this one has, like, a lot of Magical Girl Raising Project books are split into 2 books, and that would cover like a little arc in itself between 2 books. So I was expecting the end of that arc, but instead we got something completely different, which really annoyed me because I wanted my answers. There's a magical girl in 13 that got taken out of prison, and she doesn't remember like why she was in prison, and I don't get to find out now for ages because I looked at the Yen Press website, and the Magical Girl 15 is going to be another breakdown book. Why are they doing this to me? I'm not saying Breakdown is bad though, that's the problem. Breakdown is still good, but because I was so mad that it wasn't Magical Girl White, it took me a little bit longer than I usually would to read it. Also, it is the fattest Magical Girl Raising Project book so far. Most of these are normally like, what, 250 pages? This one's nearly 400 or so. It's a fat girl. Rant over. So yeah, Breakdown is good. It has a lot of returning faces, which helps carry it a little bit. It does set up a very good situation for murder and stuff. They're stuck on an island. There's a finite resource for them to be able to keep their magic going. And they will easily start fighting over this. There's also the matter of some magical dude's inheritance, which is why they're all on this island in the first place. So it has built a wonderful melting pot of chaos. But it insulted me and made me unhappy. So as much as it could probably happily sit in A tier, it's gonna go to B tier because I'm mad at it. And for no other reason. Now, the only book we have read in its entirety on stream, Exordium, this from Stone, Bone and Wood series by Blake R. Wolf, who I found on TikTok. He talks about his books a lot. He has a lot of books and he publishes them a lot. But it's quite a good fantasy story. It's about a main character who he has to scavenge dungeons and stuff for money, but all his dungeons are running dry, so he has to brave the forbidden dungeon, which no one's come out of alive. And then eventually he gets a talking fox companion and everything's great. No, that's a lie. Nothing's great in this book. It's quite sad and depressing a lot, actually. And that's all I'm going to say about it, actually, because I forgot it's in my top 5! Da-da-da! So we talk about the top 5 later. I'm not going to rant about it now. Rant later. So we can move on to logical magic. When what is real defies logic, anything. I'm going to admit I didn't like this book. Not all. These aren't all. I mean, you're not wrong, actually. I was trying to defend myself, saying not all the top 5 books are sad, but we have one book about murdered magical girls, one book about a golden good boy in a very sad world that doesn't let him be as good as he wants to be, one book about people trying to invade and some sad character deaths and horrible things happening to characters, one book about one guy's struggle to survive in a world again that is quite harsh, and you're right, it's all sad, isn't it? Why you gotta call me out like this? Ow! Anyway. Logical magic I didn't quite like. Is it happy? No. I mean, it is. I don't know. Still recovering from that call out. 1 minute. I need a drink. So Logical Magic is a YA, and the most YA that all YA'd. It has the sort of tall, dark, mysterious love interest and a little love triangle and a main character who's oh so special. And I shouldn't have read it. It's not for me. It's for teenage girls who are interested in this kind of thing. But I read it with my brain going like, okay, what would teenage Bryony be interested in this? And that is also a no. Because teenage Bryony had no interest in boys. She's too busy, I don't know, watching anime and shit. So it just wasn't for me. I think there's definitely an audience out there for this book, and as much as I shit on it, it probably is enjoyable to someone else. Just not me. Just not me. So it goes in my D tier. I actually didn't even leave a review for this book because I knew reading it that it feels unfair to leave a review for something that you know was never intended for you to begin with. Like, I could give my opinion on this book, but it is basically irrelevant to the actual book. Now, this one I took a picture of a physical book because I actually read this one as a physical book. I picked it up in a garden centre because it came with a notebook that had it like this. I also happen to be a Fate fan, and I read What's it? What's it? One of the most recent Fates. Fate with Voyager and Voyager. Voyager, there he is. Fate Requiem, that's it. If you know, like, Fate Stay Night. Yes, I do like Fate. I like Fate a lot. I don't know if you've seen it. The Fate Strange preview they just put out, and the fact that we're getting a new Fate game this year. Ah! I've read a bit of the visual novel, I won't lie, I haven't finished it. I am a similar boat. I've watched the animes, I've watched all the movies and everything like that. I've played a good bit of Grand Order. I'm not up to date, but I know vaguely what's going on. I played Fate Extra, Fate Extella. They were very good games. If you love Muso games, I highly suggest the Fate Extella and Extella Link. They're both very good. But in a most recent series, there is a very cute little child character who is an absolute baby, and I love him. And his name is Voyager. I'm gonna actually show you because he's just that cute. We need to see him. I'm gonna bless your eyes with him. Voyager, Fate. Look at this sweet child. He's adorable. And part of him is based off, it's not his actual servant identity, but part of him is based off The Little Prince. So that's another reason I was quite curious to pick up this book. Read about my little baby Voyager. And it's actually quite a melancholy book. It kind of explores the feelings of being an adult, but having sort of a childlike brain. I really like the translation in this particular book. It comes across quite sassy. And for a book so old, this is at least... Oh, when was this written? Me and my brain for facts and remembering things. So this was originally published in 1943. Oh, not quite 100 years old yet. But definitely quite old. But it does have it. This book's similar to which Fate? So it's not quite similar to a Fate. It's connected to one of the servants, because you know how the servants come from either mythology. Some of them can come from literature as well. And that particular Fate character I just showed you came from one of the most recent Fate spin-offs called Fate Requiem, which that particular Fate universe is basically supposed to be far in the future, where they've thrown off any and all pretext, and it's like, everyone has a servant now. Everyone and their grandma has a servant now. And that's what that universe is like. But this is just like connected to one of the characters' laws specifically. And it's a very fun tale. It's very short as well, so it was a nice little extra thing to add to not only bump up my numbers this year, but just to step out of my usual fantasy world and see what a classic is like. It was a very good... I want to try read another classic this year. This was definitely an 8. It's got pictures in it. It's not a dark story. Well, actually, it's very melancholy. It might be a little bit dark, not like super dark, but not happy all the time. But it has pictures. Very good pictures. Oh, apparently I'm sent a gift on. Oh, look at. And then the final book, which I guess since it's the last book on here, you can kind of guess by now. Don't you suss me. Don't you me like that. It's a happy book, okay? Look, it's a happy book. It's a happy book, and guess where it's going? Because we've only got 4 things in the top 5. It's a happy book in the top 5. It's a miracle. And we can go talk about the top 5 now. And now this isn't in any particular order. I don't think. I think it might actually be in similar order to the actual top 5. So my top 5, starting with number 5. But first we're gonna actually look at this. I thought this would. I can't help it if the last book I read this year happened to be. Well, I'll tell you something actually. When I first put this together, the first Tear Moon Empire was the one that was going to be in the top 5. But then I read Tear Moon 2, the last book this year, and it completely replaced it. And I don't like putting in more than one of a series in my top 5. I've sometimes done it. We've sometimes done it with the Magical Girl Racing Project if they've had 2 really good ones. But yeah, so there's one happy one. Just knew you'd call me out, so I had to prove you wrong. And no, I thought this would be harder to do, you know. I thought I'd end up shuffling these around. But I've actually managed to put things in a pretty good order. I'm going to take a little screenshot of this, I think. And that way I can put it on the medias of the socials. Future reference. Ooh, there we go. Got it. Cool. Now let's go on to my top 5 books of 2022. I wanted to say 3 then, but we're not. This is confusing. It's like when you go back to school and you had to write the date on your books and you just keep writing the wrong year for a long time. So book 5 is Magical Racing Project 13 because... Good lord, is there so much political intrigue going on in this book at this point. So, by the time we get to book 13 of Magical Girl Racing Project, there are 3 main political factions within the Magical Girl world. And this book takes place in a Magical Girl school where these girls have literally been split into groups based off those political factions and have been sent with ulterior motives to learn things and do... There is so much going on in the background. So much dark shit. And then the finale of this book had a really good excuse to bring back some of the most terrifying villains of the series. And it was terrifying. I'm surprised more people didn't die, honestly. There were some very smart decisions made by the girls at the end of this book, which actually saved their lives a lot. So that's why it's in my top 5. Also because there's usually a Magical Girl Racing Project book in my top 5, top 10-ish. And this was the best one this year because Breakdown hurt me. Therefore it will not be top 5. Second Breakdown next year might have a chance of it, but it's still not the main story that I want. They keep taking that from me. Number 4 is Bone, Stone and Wood, Book 1, Exordium, Blake R. Wolf, which I already did talk about a little bit. It's about a main character who's quite desperate and the world's quite harsh. Not much political intrigue in this one. There is stuff going on in the background, but it's generally quite dark. But I say it's quite dark, but you know what there is? There is a talking fox. There is a cute talking fox who wants to do best in the world. Who wants to help the world. He's a good boy. And that makes everything better. I mean, it can't be dark if there's a talking fox, right? This is also entirely available on stream. There's a whole playlist. He is unlucky. He's incredibly unlucky, to be honest. He's poor. He's an elf, which means he might get targeted for having magic in a world where magic is outlawed. Can it grant wishes? The fox? No. Unfortunately not. He can give warm hugs, though. Because he's fluffy. But, this whole book is on my channel, being read by me. What can it do? It can do a little bit of magic by itself. He lit a fire at one point. And he can bite stuff. And he can talk. and offer companionship and be fluffy. He did help him escape at the end. That's a spoiler. Okay. It is cute. Zyuk is a good boy. But you do need to get like halfway through this book before you get to Zyuk. But you don't even need to read this book, because you can listen to me read it to you completely on this channel. Third one. I already talked a lot about this one because I forgot that was in my top 5. It is a good series, and I was surprised when I got this book because it had been a few years between the second book and this book coming out. It wasn't that hard to get back into. I thought it was going to be quite, because there's some complicated relationships and politics and stuff going on. There is in most of these books, because that's just the kind of dark worlds I like, apparently. But it actually wasn't that hard to slip back into. There was no sort of reminders or anything, but enough sort of went on, and I was like, oh yeah, this, and oh yeah, this, oh yeah, this. Like, I remembered enough after so many years to be able to just get back into it, and that's always good. That's a bonus on any book, really. Because I know what I'm writing, and especially now I'm writing a book that I haven't published in a few years, and I'm thinking about Moon 5 and 6. I always feel the need to put like a recap in somewhere at the start. But this has proven to me that maybe I don't need to do that quite as much if I can just sort of ease people in. I don't know. It's definitely given me stuff to think about. It is fascinating. Ah! The happy book! Broken World, does that have a lot of flashbacks? No, honestly. Not many at all. I think the second book had a few flashbacks, but for the most part, no. It's pretty on its present track. Tear Moon Empire, though. I am so excited for this anime, you have no idea. This book kind of wrapped things up. The reason the second book replaced the first book in my top 5 is because the first book had this issue where it felt like a lot of little short stories that had been put together, which is kind of a side effect of it coming from a web novel. It's just the way you have to write for a web novel, is that you need to have lots of little arcs to keep people involved. Keep people coming back and reading every week or a few days that you publish. That's fair enough. No, it's not. It's perfect the way it is, okay? It's second. What are you on about? Whereas this one only had 2 sort of short stories, and they both were quite chunky, and the last one kind of pulled it all together really well and gave... Honestly, Tear Moon could have ended here, happily. It had like a pretty solid conclusion, but I've read the blurb of the next one, and how they've managed to carry this on is bonkers. I can't wait for the third book. So she's like, as I've said with this one, they could have ended it here. Mia's kind of achieved her goal of not going to the guillotine in the future. And then the next... It's not a spoiler if it's in the blurb, right? Because apparently her granddaughter from the future comes back and is like, hey, the future's sucky, can we change it? I'm gonna die. I'm just like, wait, what? Wait, what? I can't wait. Can't wait to get to the third book. It took me ages to get to the bloody second book. But, I will get to it sooner. I have a very specific to-read list. And it takes a while to get around to sequels sometimes. But I really want to read more Tear Moon. Because I think the first 2 is all the anime is going to do. I don't think the anime is going to get to the third one. If they have like 12 episodes. That's where they're going to go. So I don't think it will spoil the thing. Now, drum roll. I should have gotten a drum roll sound. God, 1 minute. Let's see if I can find one. Drum. Oh, I know. It's important. Drums. No, I cannot find. I cannot find one that's guaranteed to not be DM. It won't be DMCA. I was looking in the YouTube audio library. Okay, it's all legal in there. But I guess with no drumming sound effect, I can do my own. And the top book I have read this year is Conquest of the Ten, Book 3 of the Constellation Saga by Kay MacLeod. Kay is aware of this channel, although I might tag her and say that she won on like Twitter or something, because she deserves to know how much she knows how much I love her book. She does by now. I've already tagged her in things where I would go like, ah, the book's so good. But so Conquest of the Ten, it just raises the bar so good. The finale feels like a couple of bloody oh wait, no, I do have one sound effect I can use. I've raised my sound effects. The final bosses in this book feel like Dark Souls bosses when you read about them. It's so good. There's this one small one that sort of like duplicates himself a little bit, and there's one like hulking monster which they just read like Dark Souls bosses, and it was so exciting to read. That's $100. No, I don't know. No. Just no. Get bonked. That's what you get. What was I saying? There's also a secondary character who came in the other book. All the way through the first book, we only have one sort of point of view character. The second one brings in another who is kind of more... He's not on the other side, but he's more sympathetic to the enemy side because he was born on that side, but he also doesn't really want to destroy all the wildlife because he likes all the animals because he's a sweet bean. And he's become easily my favourite character. But terrible things happen to him in this book, and it makes me sad. However, we did also have the demon bug in this one, who also became a favourite character of mine. I hope they're not dead. I have played a little bit of Dark Souls 3, and that is about it. It's a stressful game. And I really need to be in the specific mood to play it, nor will I don't think I could ever stream it either, because it's so much stress. I don't think I would be able to read this book on stream, because it's the third in a series. I don't think I could get away with it. I could ask Kay very nicely about the first book, but most of the time they only want me to either read previews or things. Because obviously they want people to buy the book. And some people I've spoken to are a bit worried that my streams will get taken and then turned into audiobooks, which I wouldn't recommend, because they would be the worst audiobooks on the planet. With me stopping every 2 seconds to read a chat that no one can actually read, and making mistakes left, right, and centre. So, I don't know. It all depends on what permissions I can get. I do plan on trying to get more permission things. Yeah, I've got a couple of books lined up. A few people have thrown their books at me. But it takes a while to get through them and review them, because one person threw their book at me. I specifically said, no, not safe for work content. And I was like, are you sure there's no lewd scenes in here? And it's like, oh, there might be 1 or 2. Specifically said no lewd scenes. But, hey-ho. Conquest of the Ten is wonderful. It's just so much drama. You've had 2 books to get in with these characters, and good lord, does it just goes full throttle all the way down, and you've got so many feelings, and Kay is wonderful. You should read all of Kay's books. She's great. That's it. That's all I got. Hour and 15 minutes. What do I do with the rest of that? I don't know. I did think I might rush through things a little too fast. That's not too bad. Hour and 15. One more. What do we do with the rest? Oh yeah, I can talk about some of the streams I want to do in the next few weeks. So next week I'll be back to streaming twice. I have a stream next week where I will be streaming Pokemon and we will be surprise trading. Let me get this. Yeah, we got one happy book. I mean, I didn't realize I had such a skew on sad books. I mean, they're not sad, they're just not super happy, you know? They got a lot of drama and stuff going on. They got, oh, yeah. So this is my next stream. We will be surprise trading on Pokemon Violet next Tuesday. We will be doing the player-fueled gacha. I have a box, most of a box, except for one line, of Quaxleys, whatever this penguin's called, Bygone, Bagels, Koikokos, Creepies, Charmanders, and Scorbunnies to trade. And I thought it'd be interesting. I love doing stupid stuff like wonder trading and gachas and things, so I thought this would be a fun way to do it. We'll see what we get. I really want a Sprigatito, because I don't have one. I did start a game on Pokemon where I have completed the game. I did start a stream where I started to play Pokemon on stream with a different profile on my Switch, where I did pick Sprigatito, but obviously you can't really trade between profiles on Switch. So I haven't been able to get access to said Sprigatito on the profile I actually want to do all the trading on. So unfortunately, we will not be trading Sprigatitos. If we do get one on the stream, though, I will breed the shit out of it, and we will hatch some eggs, and then we can trade Sprigatitos. Also, my friends will want some, too, because one of the reasons I couldn't get a Sprigatito is because none of my friends picked Sprigatito. I think, like, 3 of us picked Fuecoco, and 2 of us picked Quaxley, so it was fine. I do feel bad for it. A little bit. Not really. I like Pokemon. Nothing makes me relax more than having a bunch of eggs to hatch on a Pokemon game and just sticking some music on and riding around in circles. Makes me so chill. But don't worry, it's just exercise for the Ditto. It's also a little bit weird in this game because you don't actually have daycare centers anymore. You just do picnics, so you're there, standing there the whole time while this is happening. It's weird. It's a bit weird. So that's what I will be doing on Tuesday. On Sunday, I will be starting a book that I have permission to read the whole book of, called Dogstar Night. I don't think I knew there was a fire thing that helped them hatch faster. That's the sort of warm body thing, isn't it? I don't think I have one, but it doesn't matter because I don't mind going around in circles with a lot of music on for a while. Yeah, thought so. That makes sense, and it is a good tip. I don't know if I have the cover of Dogstar. But Dogstar Night it's a children's book. But the author was like, oh, but adults get a lot from it too. And I'm not sure how true that is. We'll find out when we get there. But it's about 2 dogs from space. And it sounded like a good time. So I decided to get up as a January thing. I thought that January is a bit of a sad time for a lot of people, and I thought everyone could do with a pick me up. So I thought a silly kids book about some dogs from space might just be what the doctor ordered for people. So look forward to that too. But I think that's all I've got for you today. Unless I want to play a game random. 1 sec. Let me have. Yeah, children's fantasy book. Probably more of a sci-fi, technically, if it's space and stuff, right? Probably more. Oh, I don't know. We'll find out, won't we? Let's have a look what I've got for you. I received a gift. Oh. My friend just got me to the moon. We were talking about it last night, and I talk about how I avoid feelings. How big, heavy feeling games make me feel big and heavy, and I don't like it that much. The thing is, I actually watched a playthrough of To the Moon a long time ago, and I don't think I was like... I don't think I had the mental capacity to process why. The doggos are cute. One's a bit rainbowy. It's good stuff. And I guess I could just go. Pose. You know what? You're right. It is New Year's. I'm a bit sleepy. I nearly fell asleep on the couch twice today, so I should just chillax today. I will be back on Tuesday with the Pokemon stream. And then after that, I want to potentially do Monday streams where I do some writing and then do some silly stuff. I'll go into more detail about that some other time, but I do hope to be making on my books this year. I want to publish again this year. That's my goal. But thank you for coming, Palm. You're a wonderful chat person, and it's great to have you around. Thank you to anyone who lurked. Thank you to anyone who watches the VOD. I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Brandy Rose Smith live from the Forbidden Library. Goodbye!